I love that song, Amazing. Amazing things. Great. Very good music. I'm so glad to be back. It's been about 5 years. Reverend Sue and I were talking on the phone the other day, and we couldn't believe it's been that long. I had a great time the last time I was here. I count it as one of my all-time favorite Unity churches, even though I haven't been back here. I only live in Kansas City, too. I don't know. I ought to come back more often. So I think it's a credit to Reverend Sue and her amazing spirit, and also to the collective consciousness here. You guys make it happen. Together we make it happen. One of the things the research has found is that together we can make a bigger difference than we can alone. And I think that's one of the reasons why we come together in churches and actually do the meditation things, because it makes a bigger difference. Okay, we're going to be talking about why do bad things happen to good people with a quantum twist. And this question's been asked and responded to by hundreds and hundreds of books. And to really understand this question, you have to understand the idea of quantum physics. And so in order to really understand the background of this question, we need to go back in time, way back in the history, how this all emerged. And a thing that's really intrigued me about Unity Church, it kind of relates to this question because a bad thing happened to the founder of Unity Church, Myrtle Fillmore. And long about the turn of the century, the last century, she came down with tuberculosis. And tuberculosis in those days was a fatal disease. And instead of fighting that disease, what she did was she loved it. She forgave every part of her body, not just the disease part, but every part of her body. I forgive my little pinky, middle finger, whatever. That also intrigued me, the fact that she went everywhere. Also, another little angle on it is she forgave the negative thoughts she had about her body. In turn, what she did was she learned to love her disease. Very intriguing. We'll be coming back to this. So, bad things happen. Let's go back in time. And the first time we're going to be talking about is the Dark Ages. In the Dark Ages, God was up there and we were down here. And if you got really, really lucky, you'd be with God. But it was out of your choices. Then, lucky for us, it didn't stay that way. The Renaissance happened. And all of a sudden, God was part of us. We were part of God. And God and humanity were together. We felt a connection. And the glorious art of that period glorified the human body as being part of God. The wonderful poets, the art, the whole time was a huge, huge, huge breakthrough for humanity. And of course, the philosophers. The philosophers at that time made the brilliant point, look at all this order and symmetry and beauty in this universe. There had to be a God to create such a thing. In other words, the outside world was proof of God. And about the same time, another group of philosophers started to emerge. And these were called the empiricists. And the empiricists said, hold on one second. Things aren't so hunky-dory down here. How come babies get thrown in dumpsters? How can an all-loving, all-powerful God allow that to happen? Of course, they didn't have dumpsters in those days, but you get the point. No, God would allow that to happen. And this debate raged on, and finally the empiricists won. You couldn't prove God by what's going on in the outside world. So God and religion became faith. Faith is a belief without proof. And then the empiricists were the precursor of science. Science meant that everything had to be proved. Everything had to be cut and dried. You have to have rules and laws, and everything follows those laws. And everything's perfect when they follow those laws. And science was really nice, and everybody was happy. And everything was hunky-dory because there was a lot of rules, a lot of laws. And then about the time that Myrtle Fillmore was healing herself of TB, something emerged. Something happened. The rules started to disappear. Miracles started to become part of science. Now, what's a miracle? Something outside the laws of nature. We now know that miracles happen on an everyday basis. Let me give you some examples. But quantum physics, of course, was the first group of scientists to actually prove that the laws of nature can be thrown out the window. For instance, one of the laws of nature is an object cannot be in two different places at the same time, right? Wrong. If an electron is circling an atom and nobody's observing that electron, then what happens is the electron is everywhere all at the same time. Not just two different places, but everywhere. How can that be? How can an object be everywhere at once? The simple answer to the question is, when nobody's observing it, it turns into energy waves. It becomes energy. We'll come back to that. The second example is quantum entanglement, one of my favorites. This was proposed in the 1930s by Schrödinger and Heidelberg, two of the most famous physicists around. And as we know, at the turn of the century, Einstein was in the vanguard of changing the collective consciousness through his theories. And one of his theories is that nothing can go faster than the speed of light. It's a constant. In fact, all the laws of nature that we know about physics is based on that one law. And then in the 1930s, it was proposed by Schrödinger that if you have a couple of electrons that circle an atom together, and if you separate these poor guys, put them in separate boxes, if you were to push on one electron, then the other electron would instantaneously go in the exact same direction. So instantaneously that if they were to communicate between each other, it would be faster than the speed of light. Now, this caused a whole huge debate in physics. And this debate raged for 50 years. And as a matter of fact, Einstein once called it spooky action at a distance. That's how much he was inflamed by this idea. He said, God doesn't play dice with the universe. It's got to have rules. Well, Einstein lost. The communication between those two electrons is faster than the speed of light. It was proven, I think, in the 1980s, and again last year, when they found that, they did the experiment in Switzerland, they found that the communication between the two electrons was actually 10,000 times faster than the speed of light. Totally instantaneously. This blew out everybody's mind. Now, let's go back to this consciousness thing. One of the biggest things going on in physics right now, in fact, it's so mind-boggling, nobody's talking about it, is the idea that in order to have a universe, in order to have matter, we have to have consciousness. We talked about how that idea of the electron kind of didn't become an electron until somebody observes it. Remember that little thing in What the Bleep? There was a little eye watching things? And that they were little balls going through this slit in a sheet going against the back wall. Well, they didn't do a very good job explaining it, but basically what the bottom line is that everything in creation is energy. Unless somebody's observing it, and then it miraculously turns into matter. I thought matter could be neither destroyed nor created. Oops, I'll put that one out too. All right. So, in other words, we're all energy waves that have managed to become in existence through consciousness. As a matter of fact, a couple of the main physicists from Stanford, which is no slouch of a physics university, have now proposed that we are creating the universe because we're observing it in our telescopes. This is not so far out. We've got to find an answer. How come there's an observer that's creating this stuff? Where is this observer? Well, actually, the answer might be from Patanjali. Over 5,000 years ago, Patanjali also wrote about this quantum dilemma. He said, if we're creating our own universes, which we are, How come if I go to the forest and see a tree down, and you go to the forest and see a tree down, we see the same tree down? Brilliant question. His point was there's an independent perceiver. Guess who that independent perceiver is? God. In a sense, science is roundabout way, you could say, proven God exists. Because you can't have existence without an observer. Interesting points. You're thinking, well, I thought we started out talking about why do bad things happen about good people? Well, what this means is that consciousness is a major player in the creation of the universe. That means our consciousness is a major player in our universe. Now, one of the things I've been doing is teaching classes on how to create the life of your dreams. I probably taught about 15,000 people, most of them people from Unity Church. And one of the questions I ask in my classes is, how many people have had a dream that has come true? And, oh, that's good. Well, usually about 50% of the class raises their hands. And a dream that comes true is a very interesting thing. It's like you're watching a movie that came true, like you're watching a movie that you've seen before, except this time you're in the movie. Very intriguing. Now, a déjà vu experience, everybody's had that. A déjà vu experience, in my way of looking at things, is a dream that's come true, but you don't remember the dream. You know, I've been here before. I don't know what happened. Now, if we are indeed quantum beings and we have this kind of ability on this side, can you imagine the kind of ability we had on the other side? We must have known the messes we were going to get ourselves into before we even came here. Make sense? So if we chose these messes, are they messes? Don't think so. They are there for our spiritual enjoyment, our spiritual challenge. A way to find our way to love even the dark side. Another way to look at it. Because on the other side, there is no darkness. Now, one of my favorite psychics, a guy named Vincent, and I've known a bunch of psychics in my life. There's nobody like him could compare. Nobody. The only people you could think of that might be as good as what I've seen him do is maybe somebody hundreds of years ago. But I lived in New York when I was in high school, and he came to visit us one time. And he told me, I was 17 years old when I first met him. Raging hormones. All I wanted to do was wine, women, and song, not necessarily in that order. He looks at me and says, I'm going to do scientific research. I'm thinking to myself, whoa, I'm not doing scientific research. He said, you're going to be doing some scientific studies on psychic stuff. These are going to be important research studies. I'm looking at him, what? So Vincent was kind of really amazing. In St. Joe's Hospital in New York City, they took him there, I think it was St. Joe's, and they had him see if they could diagnose people they couldn't figure out what was wrong with them. He was able to diagnose people and tell them what was wrong with them they couldn't figure it out. Then they tried him on horse racing. Horse racing's big on the East Coast. And he guessed every one of them right. Not just half of them right, every one of them right. Even half of them right would have been a major accomplishment. Because I think it was, 10 or 15 horses that race in every race? The odds of that is incredible. How could he do that? I have never seen a psychic be able to do that. Nobody comes even close. And I hadn't talked to Vincent about 8 or 10 years. After I finished graduate school, I did all these studies. I thought, I have to give him a call. Let him know his prediction was right. And I tried to reach him. I couldn't find him anywhere. All the usual suspected places, he wasn't there. And nobody had heard of him. I couldn't believe it. Nobody heard. This is a world-class psychic. So finally I was able to get a hold of somebody who knew his brother. So I called his brother. Vincent had died of AIDS. He couldn't see his own stuff. That's our challenge, to see our own stuff. Deepak Chopra and a bunch of others, Bruce Lipton, have recently said that all of our stuff is in our subconscious. How are we going to figure out our subconscious stuff? That's a real challenge, because it's not in our consciousness. This thing about, there's another angle on this. If we indeed chose these messes, how does it work? And why did we choose these messes? Why do we choose these challenges? And in this regard, I like to talk a little about Betty Eadie. Betty Eadie had a life after death experience where she was clinically dead, heart rate stopped, brain stopped, everything. And then she miraculously came back to life. And she wrote 3 or 4 books, I think, about this. And one of the things she said was, the first thing, I love her for this, the first thing she did was, as soon as she died, went over to the other side, she asked God, well, God, how come bad things happen to good people? She didn't mess around. I like that. And God just laughed and said, look at this bum down there in the street. She said, yeah, I see the bum down there. She says, in about 15 minutes, a very famous lawyer is going to come walking by. And this lawyer is going to look in the eyes of the bum, and he's going to transform his life from working for money to working for help humanity. What's he going to do? He is going to change this other person's life. That was his mission. That's why he came down to this earthly plane. So we chose it. And the implications are that we chose things to help us help other people. If we go through pain, then that helps us understand our brothers and sisters' pain so that we can be there for them. It's huge. On the other side, there is no suffering. Everybody says that. So we came down here, we're thinking, think of yourself on the other side. Geez, there's people suffering. I want to do something about this. Help them out. So what are you going to do? You're going to choose to experience pain so you can help them with their pain. A drug addict can help another drug addict far better than somebody who's never been through a drug addiction. You got to go through it. So I think the real reason why bad things happen to good people is that we chose these bad things to help us understand other people so we could help them. Seeing as we're quantum beings, we had to have chosen it. Now, there's another angle on this. How do we get rid of these blocks? How do we figure out these subconscious things? And in this regard, I think Myrtle Fillmore gave us a clue. What she did is she forgave every part of her body. Not just the disease part, every part of her body. Plus the negative thoughts she had about her body. So what she was doing was sending love to every part of her body. She was learning to love her disease, which is a challenging thing. Very challenging thing. My mother came down with cancer of the colon, spread to the liver, lungs, and bones. And they gave her a couple months to live. She went on the Ayurvedic diets, which is those anti-cancer herbs from India. She did the anti-cancer diet, which of course is mostly vegetables and all those phytochemicals and vegetables that fight cancer. And she also did a lot of praying and healing. When I used to take her to the hospital, get a checkup, the people who had her disease were basket cases. You couldn't even tell she was sick. couldn't even tell she was sick. She once told me that cancer was the best thing that ever happened to her because she learned to live her life, every second of the day, fully. Without cancer, she would have never learned that. She did everything on her bucket list. She lived for 3 years. She had a ball. And she went out on her terms, not the cancer's terms. So I think Myrtle Fillmore gave us a clue about how to heal. By going down and forgiving every part of her body, what she was doing was, she was, in a sense, stimulating the energy points in the whole body. You can tap on the energy points, you can do Reiki on them, but you can also do attention on them. Your attention, your consciousness goes on and does the same kind of thing. So in a sense, I think what she was is she was an energy healer. But she had an interesting angle. She loved every part of her body. She forgave it. And when you forgive it, you're learning to love it. You have to first forgive before you can love. So I think what we've learned is that this idea that the quantum, but since we're all quantum beings, we are already creating and collapsing the wave functions in our own particular way. That means we can change the way we can collapse these wave functions through love, by making an enemy a friend. You can have a far greater influence on a friend than an enemy. Through love, we can make everything a friend, even cancer, even tuberculosis. I'd like to close with one of my favorite quotes from T.S. Eliot, one of my favorite poets. In the beginning, we shall not cease from exploration. And the end of all of our exploring will be to arrive where we started from. And then we'll know the place for the first time. Thank you very much. Okay, what I'd like to... Yeah, yeah. I'll talk a little bit about the seminar we're going to be doing today and tomorrow. It's a 2-day seminar. And one of the big questions that I always get in my seminars is how come I keep making the same mistakes over again, even though I know what my own problems are? And usually almost everybody raises their hand. Well, the reason why you keep making the same mistakes is due to old brain pathways. And what we've found is that you can actually change those old brain pathways by stimulating the acupuncture points by tapping. Okay, just like I'm doing right now, tapping on the acupuncture points with our fingers. And we're going to add some really interesting things into this class. We're going to be doing Ho'oponopono and heart math. Heart math is very similar to the meditation I just gave you today. We did here in the church. And Ho'oponopono was actually a very interesting. There's a bunch of books written on it by a bunch of people, but Joe Vitale is the one that most people think about. He's from The Secret. And by the way, I met Joe Vitale and told him about what I call quantum Ho'oponopono and showed him what I do. He liked it so much we decided to do a DVD together. And Joe Vitale, who's known as Mr. Intention, now believes that letting go of one's intentions is the way to get there. Because you can't really get to the quantum by trying to get there. It was one of those weird dilemmas. But anyway, so the idea being, and what happened with Ho'oponopono, in case you haven't heard this, this psychologist healed a whole psychology ward of a hospital for the criminally insane by not praying for them, but praying for his own negative thoughts about them. And most people say, well, he prayed over with the files and all that stuff. He didn't do that. He prayed about his own negative thoughts. He used a few lines like, please forgive me, I'm sorry, thank you, and I love you. Basically, that's all he did. So we're going to do that in a quantum way. We're going to teach you how to manifest using the same manifestation techniques that we use to change the crime rates in, actually we did this recently in Dallas using tapping. I just did a study there in Dallas. We had about 1,000 people from Unity Church and Sights of Mind churches to do tapping. And we were able to reduce the crime rates by 25% over a 3-year period. I mean, it went down immediately and stayed that way for 3 years, which is pretty amazing. So these techniques work. We're going to teach you this technology, and we're going to use Ho'oponopono to clean our subconscious, because that's the real key. We're going to use Ho'oponopono to get rid of those subconscious blocks that we're not even aware of. So this class will be life-transforming. It'll be today and tomorrow, 2-day class. And if you can't make today's class, then come early tomorrow at 5:30 instead of 6:30. In case you can't make either of the classes, then we do have some DVDs and CDs in the back that we can also in the hallway out there, which you can get as kind of replacement. In my DVD, which is kind of new, you'll learn how to tap, how to get high with tapping, how to change the feel-good neurotransmitters in your brain. You'll also learn how to use it with songs. Bukeiko's on there, by the way. She took all my tapping classes in Overland Park, and now we do concerts together every now and then. Tapping and heart math concerts, which we'd like to come down here and do with you guys sometime. It'd be fun to do. We talked about that, because it's only a short drive down here. It's really not that bad. So, and then also there's a section on prayers, and a section on how to get rid of junk food cravings, and also how to fall asleep and stay asleep. Then there's a couple of CDs that go along with it to make the class, how to manifest the life of your dreams, and of course a meditation on being held in the arms of God. Be sure to get your name on there so we can keep track of you and send you a whole bunch of papers, and also in case we do another project down here, we can have you guys come. So anyway, that's it. That's the main thing. Remember, the class starts tomorrow, and today it's a 2-day class, and I'm looking forward to spending some time with you there. Thank you very much.